there everybody, Richard Fulmer here, and welcome to a special tribute show. Of course, you probably know where I'm going with this. Many tributes have already been done, but I thought that I need to do one, seeing as this gentleman was a big part of my musical journey and my musical discovery, along with the other guys in Black Sabbath, as well as his solo career, which was pretty successful. Of course, I'm talking about John Michael Osborne, otherwise known as Ozzy Osbourne, who sadly passed away recently at the age of 76. He'd been suffering from a long time from Parkinson's, plus all sorts of other medical issues that he'd been having. And I think in the end, his body just couldn't anymore, and that was it. But what a fantastic career. I mean, he started out with the rest of the guys in Sabbath pretty much from a low-income group in Birmingham. I mean, these guys didn't have much, but they had the willpower and they had the passion for music, and they became like family. And the rest is history as far as Sabbath goes. Sadly, in 78, he left Black Sabbath under a bit of a cloud because of drugs and all sorts of other issues. But it was kind of like the pot calling the kettle black. You know, all the guys were doing drugs at that stage, but I think Ozzy was probably just doing it a few levels more than the rest of the guys. So, unfortunately, he left the band, but he picked up. I mean, he was at his lowest ebb, met Sharon, that's that Sharon Arden, later on became his wife, and she picked him up by his bootlaces, and together they forged a massive solo career. Later on, he would become a bit of a celebrity, but I don't think Ozzy was ever really comfortable with that whole celeb side of his life. He was a musician, you know, he did it for the love of music, for the fans, and that whole celeb thing, the Osbournes and the rest, I think that was just a sideshow, which, I mean, it made a lot of money for them, but I don't think his heart was really into it, and that's just my personal opinion. I know quite a few of my friends think along the same lines, but, you know, it is what it is, that's what they did. But nevertheless, he had a great solo career and always gave 110% to the fans, to whichever audience it was, audience of 5 or 50,000. Ozzy gave his heart and soul. That was one thing I loved about that guy. You know, there were no rock star pretensions. He never tried to be somebody that he wasn't. The Ozzy that you saw off stage and the Ozzy on stage, obviously very different. Two different people. He was very much a family man, but he was a down-to-earth guy, is what I'm trying to say. He never brushed you off. It didn't matter if you were the street sweeper or if you were a head of a record company. You know, he treated you the same. And that's how it should be, I think. There's far too many of these so-called rock stars out there who have these delusions of grandeur, you know, and but Ozzy was never like that. He did it for the love of music, like I said. So yeah, a big solo career, that's what we're going to concentrate on today. I mean, I have done quite a few videos on Sabbath. You pretty much know his history with that band. I think he did, about 10 albums? From 1970 through to 78, finishing off with Never Say Die and starting off with the self-titled. Never the world's greatest vocalist, although, having said that, if you listen to Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, Sabotage, and maybe volume 4 of the early days of Sabbath, you can hear the man had serious pipes. And I think that was his peak, vocal-wise. Some of his solo stuff as well, he was really good. But I think towards the end, when the health issues started to become a problem, his vocals took a bit of a dip, and I think they had to tweak things in the studio and what have you. But he still produced quality stuff. I don't have all of his solo stuff, but I'm just going to point out a few that I think you should get if you're new to Ozzy. Or if you don't have all of his stuff, some that you may be missing, which I think are essential. And remember, please guys, this is my personal choice. You may have others. Let me know down below in the comments. That'll be fantastic. So let's get into it. Like I said, I don't have all of his albums. Some of the later ones I didn't really go for because I think he was just going through the motions at that stage. The songwriting wasn't that great. So I don't have all of them, but I think I have the ones that really matter. I just want to... So we start off this was 1980, I think this was 81. Blizzard of Oz, his first, there we go, there he is. iconic album this will become. And there's the back shot. This is not a deluxe version or anything. This has been re-released numerous times. So who was in the band? Well, you had the late great Randy Rhoads on guitar, who was a revelation to Ozzy. And he sadly passed away. He would only do 2 albums with Ozzy, and then he was in that helicopter crash, as you all know. And alongside him was Bob Daisley on bass, who became Ozzy's chief songwriter. He doesn't always get credited for that. Wrote a lot of the big hits. And Lee Kerslake on drums. Daisley and Kerslake were both in Uriah Heep at one stage or another. And a fantastic rhythm section. So that's who you had on this album. And I mean, some of the tracks in here would become famous. Crazy Train, come on, who doesn't know Crazy Train? That final concert that Ozzy did with the rest of the guys, that was one of the numbers that he still managed. And you know, that concert, that final concert, I don't know how he managed to do that. I mean, the guy was struggling. And personally, I think that concert is probably what tipped him over the edge. Because it was, 2 weeks after that concert that he passed away. And I think, that really took it out of him. But he still did it for the fans. That was the incredible thing. So Crazy Train, I don't know. Goodbye to Romance, which is more of a mellow track. D, Suicide Solution, with some stunning guitar work from Randy Rhoads. I mean, the guy was an exceptional guitarist. And Ozzy's vocals on here are really good. Great songs. No Bone Movies, which is sort of a joke song. Revelation, Mother Earth, Steal Away the Night. Yeah, that's a must-have, the first one, Blizzard of Oz. Then we get into the second one, which is my favorite solo album from Ozzy. Diary of a Madman. You can see him there in all his lunacy. Yeah, I never know why they called him the Prince of Darkness. That was just a media thing, I think. I don't think he was very comfortable with that epithet. But anyway. So what have you got on here? Over the same lineup in the studio, but it would change on the road. Tommy Aldridge was coming on drums and Rudy Salza on bass. So there was a change of personnel. But the original has got Lee Kerslake and Bob Daisley. And Bob Daisley, like I mentioned, also wrote a lot of these hits. Over the Mountain with that great drum intro. Flying High Again. You Can't Kill Rock and Roll, which for me is the best track on here, with that lovely acoustic beginning. And the lyrics just say it all. You can't kill rock and roll. People have tried. Tonight. And the title track, Diary of a Madman, is fantastic. This album's also been re-released numerous times. There's a better picture of him. That's his first son, apparently, at the back there. Because he's got kids from Sharon and from his first wife, Thelma. I think there's 2 from Thelma and then 3 from Sharon. So that's an essential as well. Then we get into the third album, of which I actually have 2 different track listings. Sort myself out here. Got so much stuff here. Bark at the Moon. So that's the vinyl that I have, and that's the CD. And there's 2 different tracks, 2 different lots of songs on here. This one has got spiders. This one doesn't have spiders. This one's got slow down, and this one doesn't have slow down. So also the running order is different on here. So this will be the first album to feature a guy called Jakey Lee on guitar after the passing of Randy Rhoads. Some of the standouts on here: Bark at the Moon, You're No Different, Now You See It, Now You Don't, Rock and Roll Rebel, another song that tells you what you need to know about Ozzy. Sorry, everybody's saying that he worships the devil and all that other crap. He was a musician, he loves rock and roll, that's it. So Tired, which was a kind of a ballad thing, which I think was a fairly big hit here in South Africa. So that appears on both of these. And I just want to see if there's anything I could show you from inside the vinyl, which is easier to show. There we go. There's Jakey Lee. There's Bob Daisley. He was still in the band. Tommy Aldridge. Don Airey, of course, he's the keyboardist these days for Deep Purple. And there's a very young looking Ozzy Osbourne with short hair. Now, he would have numerous hairstyles and what have you over his solo career. Cut it off, grow it long. Add tattoos, as Ozzy wanted to do. So that's that one. Then you had a second album with Jakey Lee called The Ultimate Sin, and this was in what I like to call Ozzy's fat period. The guy really ballooned out and he was wearing all these massive stage outfits that didn't do much for his look, I have to say. Sorry, I'm just trying to sort myself out here. Um, so this had Phil Susan, I think, on bass, and Randy Costello, the late Randy Costello, on drums. Excellent drummer as well. Shot in the Dark was a big hit from this album. The Ultimate Sin, Secret Loser. A little bit more commercial, I would say, from the first two, or from the first three, although Bark at the Moon also started to go in that way. And obviously, he's trying to crack the American market, and boy, did he crack it. But that would come with a later album, which I'll get to in a second. Yeah, so this one came out, what year was this? This was 1986. Jeez, the writing is so small here, but yeah, big tours, crazy tours. I think around this time he did that tour with Motley Crue where they drank pretty much themselves into a stupor. Ultimate Sin. Quite a few music videos from this as well, I think. What else can I show you? There was a live album called Speak of the Devil, which I have on vinyl too. But my vinyl version is called Talk of the Devil. There we go. Ozzy with some jam in his mouth, supposed to be blood. This one's Speak of the Devil. And for the life of me, there's no difference in the tracks. All the same tracks. But anyway, they decided to call it something else. These are all Black Sabbath tracks that he and I don't know why he did this. This was at the same time that Sabbath released a live album with Ronnie James Dio, Live Evil. And for some reason, there must have been contractual reasons or something. This is all Black Sabbath tracks, you know, the ones he did with his old friends. And this is the only album to feature Brad Gillis on guitar, who sort of was filling in. In fact, Bernie Tormey, the Gillan guitarist, was the very first guy to appear live with Ozzy after Randy Rhoads' death, but he didn't last very long. Then Brad Gillis did this album, and then Jakey Lee came along. So that's another one that you might want to get if you're a completist like I am. There was also a tribute to Randy Rhoads' live album. This one is just called Tribute. And you have some great stuff on here. And this, I think, features Zakk Wylde, that will become Ozzy's go-to guitarist for many albums. Also a great album, this one. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I don't want to bore you guys to tears. You know, this is basically just a tribute to Ozzy and to thank him. But I thought I'd just mention some of these albums. There we go. That's the live one. The tribute album. The first album to feature Zakk Wylde, No Rest for the Wicked. Really rather strange cover with Ozzy and a few three girls there. Don't know what's going on there, but anyway. You know, a lot of the times I think it's up to the record companies and the promo guys who do these things, not the actual singer. Miracle Man was a great track. Devil's Daughter. Crazy Babies. Breaking All the Rules. Bloodbath in Paradise. Tattooed Dancer. Demon Alcohol. Yeah, there's Ozzy giving a nod to his main demon that he had, besides the drugs. Booze was a big part of his downfall, I think. And Miracle Man was actually having a go at old Jimmy Swaggart, you know, that evangelist who fell off the wagon when he was found he was, you know, having sort of affairs with little boys and what have you. Very sick thing. And yeah, the lyrics to that song are very good. Ozzy having a dig, because, you know, they were always having a dig at Ozzy as being this Satanist and all the rest of that nonsense. But anyway, there we go. No Rest for the Wicked. Another one worth checking out. And then finally, for me, there are a few others that I haven't mentioned, but the last truly great album that Ozzy released, and this was in 1991, No More Tears. This one would become massive for him. Huge tour after this album. There he is on vocals, Zakk Wylde on guitar, Randy Costello drums, Bob Daisley again on bass. Bob Daisley's name pops up right throughout Ozzy's career. Just sad that he wasn't there for that final concert. I don't think him and Sharon really get on. John Sinclair on keyboards, who was also part of Uriah Heep for a while. And Michael Innes on bass, inspiration and musical direction. And Michael Innes would actually join as a full-time bassist. Excellent songs on here. Mr. Tinker Train with that really creepy beginning with like children in a playground. And then, you know, Ozzy comes in. I Don't Want to Change the World. Mama, I'm Coming Home, and that obviously was a huge hit and very sad song. They played it at his final concert with Black Sabbath. I think everybody was in tears when that was played. Desire, which has got a brutal riff from Zakk Wylde. Excellent track. The title track, No More Tears, which had a really strange music video to go with it. I'm not quite sure what's supposed to be going on in that video. But nonetheless, it worked for him. Hellraiser, which was a song written by Lemmy Kilminster, and I'm sure Ozzy and Lemmy are causing all sorts of havoc wherever they are now. Time After Time, Zombie Stomp with another brutal riff, AVH and Road to Nowhere. This was a great album. Just want to show you a picture of the band. There we go. It's Michael Innes, there's Randy Castillo, the late Randy Castillo, Ozzy in the middle there. And there's a very young Zakk Wylde without the beard. Of course, now he looks like some sort of mountain man. And that's it, guys. That's just a few of the albums that I think are essential in Ozzy's catalogue. If you don't have, go out and check them. Go out and look for them. Brilliant stuff. And yeah, Ozzy was a one-off. I don't think there'll ever be another artist like Ozzy. Very humble guy, like I said, down with the fans, which is why I really enjoyed him. You know, he never had look at me kind of thing. And for him, he went out on every show as if it was his last. And yeah, right up until the end, he was a guy for the stage. But sadly, in the end, his body just couldn't anymore. I think his mind still wanted to do it, but his body, you could see that last concert, he so wanted to get out of that chair and just rock with the rest of the guys in Black Sabbath. But great that they were able to do it. Final goodbye and what have you. So yeah, thanks Ozzy. Thanks for the memories. Thanks for being such a big part of my life, my musical journey. Got me through some tough times with the rest of the guys in Sabbath, and solo career as well, like I just mentioned. Some excellent stuff. Take it easy, guys. I'm sure you all must be sick and tired of seeing all these Ozzy tributes, but I just thought I had to do one because of the reasons I've just given. Take it easy, and I'll catch you soon. Bye-bye.